Hi, excuse me, I'm John Merhige from Credence MedSystems, and it's a pleasure to moderate this panel. I see all three of us or four of us are here, so I'll introduce the topic quickly and then our panelists, and we'll be off and running. So as it says here, we'll be talking about advancing next generation device technologies, and I think there's a lot of crossover from the prior conversation into this one, obviously, and I think that will be informative to pull some of Jim's and Quentin's conversations and comments into this topic. But we'll explore what's driving the need for innovation. We'll explore what the hurdles are and how that's felt both from inside of pharma and from inside of the device innovators out there. And we'll be optimistic and look for the best ways to overcome some of those hurdles and using collaborations most effectively. So I obviously invite as many comments from the audience as possible. I'll integrate them as I see them come in. And let's get into introductions. So we have Sherri Biandi from AstraZeneca. We have Howansky from BMS and Quentin from Merck. And I'll invite each of you, maybe starting with Mark, to give a little bit of your background. And if you feel the desire, maybe just name a technology that is part of your past or your present that you're involved in launching, and it'd be a nice way to start. So please, Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, John, and thanks for the opportunity to be on the panel and represent Bristol Myers Squibb. I actually am lucky to have a 25-year career developing various devices. First 15 years straight devices, and the last 10 in combination products. And I worked for big companies like Johnson & Johnson and Medtronic and Stryker. And most recently, Bristol Myers Squibb. Our group does the development of the device constituent of any combination product for the company. So right now, a lot of the push is looking to move IV applications into subcutaneous delivery. But we're also looking at other unmet needs that maybe a device can help solve. Some things like combinatorial delivery of multiple drugs is something we're looking at early stage. I can speak to that a little bit. And then just like everybody else in all the panels we've seen, looking at connected health, digital applications, and seeing how that fits into our business.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate those comments. Sherri, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sherri Biandi. I'm the head of device development at AstraZeneca. Let's see, you had asked about devices launch. So I have worked on in my career launching some innovative inhalation products, as well as maybe more traditional prefilled syringes and auto injectors. In terms of what we're doing now that's innovative, there's just a lot of challenges, I think, with new modalities and trying to make a step change in efficacy for drug products coming on the market. And that can mean delivering high doses. It can, like Mark said, delivering multiple therapeutics at the same time, or just delivering molecules that have real challenges being formulated in a traditional way. And so a lot of our time these days, besides working on traditional devices, is trying to solve the challenges with new modalities, which is super interesting, and a lot of great discussion in the conference today and yesterday on that.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's going to be a great lead into our probably first question. But Quentin, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'm working for the Connected Health and Devices team of EMD Servono in the US. And of course, because of the name, of course, we're focusing on connected health. But myself, I've been working both on connected electronic injectors, but also complex reconstitution devices in the past. And that's something that I think is coming on a regular basis, is the fact that not all medication can easily be made into a liquid formulation that can be injected subcutaneously. So there are challenges related to reconstitution and just making sure that you don't maybe you remove some of the burden in terms of formulation through devices that are still simple to use, but can do the last few steps of reconstitution. That's something that is really, I think, extremely interesting from an engineering perspective already.
Yeah, that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart in terms of reconstitution devices. So it'd be great to revisit that. So I guess, folks, what you see here is not just the pharma input. These are panelists that, in Mark's case, have worked on the device side of things, but certainly in all three's case, have a lot of vast experience getting new technologies to market and understanding the challenges within pharma of doing so. And that's an area where, for me, as being on the other side, as trying to launch new innovative technologies to solve needs we see, it's insightful. So I'm hopeful that one of the takeaways here will be that we can get into really what it is like on each side of the line. But to start off, let's think about what these hurdles are. And then as an entree into that, what's driving the need for innovation, right? I think certainly increased demands on usability as sites of administration change, certainly formulation challenges, Sherri, you mentioned. But Mark, why don't you jump in with us and your thoughts on what are the primary drivers of the need for innovation, despite the fact that there are hurdles to adopting?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the need for innovation has always been there for all time, and things can always improve. But I think the mindset within pharma is changing. Coming from the device world, everything starts from the unmet user need, and companies try to identify that internally or with thought leaders, have different ways to get the unmet need, and things trickle down from there, and then the solutions are created and evaluated against those unmet needs. Kind of the traditional waterfall process of development. I think every device person who grew up in devices lives and breathes that process. In the pharma world, I think because so much of the focus was and is and still will be on the drug efficacy, getting the drug to work, to prove that it works, is just a subset of the complete product. So I think the driver is just a change of a mindset that this is a product and it's not just a drug. So it's a product. So it's the drug working, but the user experience, and being from a pharma, the business side of it, reimbursement, all those things have to be considered up front to develop offerings. And so it's the need to improve has always been there, but I think the box that big pharma companies are looking at is getting expanded, and that cultural aspect, like that was talked about in the last panel, is important. It's more of a mindset of what's the unmet need that we're trying to address, as opposed to what's a big disease state that we can find a drug that works.
Yeah, those are great comments and speak to, Quentin, what you said in your last call, right? Pharma describes the product as a molecule. I want to describe the product as a drug device combination product. And Sherri, I know you have some thoughts about that. Maybe you can jump into what's driving innovation or the need for it.
You know, I like Mark's comment a lot that I think pharma's changed and evolved in the last, I don't know, like let's say 5 to 7 years, and thinking about a product and a product experience instead of just thinking about the molecule. And in doing so, that's kind of shaped their perspective on the experience that they want to create for patients, right? The positive, confident delivery experience they're trying to create. But at the same time, I feel like pipelines have really changed. Like if I think of what we're trying to deliver 7 years ago, it was mostly monoclonal antibodies, at least in my pipelines, monoclonal antibodies and peptides, and people could leverage kind of an established experience in formulating those that helped things fit in kind of what we might in parenterals think of as more traditional devices like pens or prefilled syringes and auto injectors. And now to have a step change in efficacy for patients, I think we've got a lot of new modalities that are coming in that are tough, right? Some of them aren't liquid stable. Some of them are really high doses. Some of them need to be reconstituted, coming back to Quentin's comment, and to create both that positive patient experience at home and have them be able to reconstitute a product at their kitchen table. To try to create both of those creates a real challenge for us to make that an intuitive experience for patients where it can be done successfully.
Yeah, it's almost a matter of displacing the pain, right? If you think about reconstitution, the need for reconstitution, and then the need for a self-injector or a loved one to perform an injection at home, to reconstitute and perform an injection at home, in order to make it manageable or easier or a higher degree of efficacy at home, it's almost like the industry's got to take on the challenges, and that becomes, well, challenging. So Quentin, do you have thoughts on maybe what's driving it, from the drive for self-injection and the change from administration in a site of care to administration at home?
Yeah, I think that there are plenty of things to be said on this. I think something that is, for me, quite clear is that we have to remember that devices are enabler, and they will stay enablers in the pharma companies for a long time probably. And what is clear is that there has been a shift. If you look maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was difficult to find the right device for your needs. Then we saw the rise of all these platforms. And what I see now with these new modalities that clearly are coming is that, I don't know, people in pharma companies got used to the benefit of platforms, but there are no platforms for these new modalities. So we have to go once again into this step of building this platform for this new type of modalities. And it is challenging. And of course, there is appetite from everyone to say, okay, if we've been able to do sub-Q injection at home for 1 ml, then we could do the same for 10 ml. And right, it's viscous, but you just have to push harder. And right, you just have to stick it on the body for a couple of days. And all this is tough, and it's surprising, but it's still long, of course, to develop this type of devices. We know, because it's challenging, and it's still long for a pharma company that got used to reducing the risk because they were using platforms over the last 5 to 10 years. So, you know, if we were probably to speak to people from 15 years ago, they would understand that developing the delivery device takes 5 to 7 years. Now they expect it to be ready in 1 or 2 years. And in fact, we are going once again into this challenge. And well, I'm not sure there is an easy way to address it, but it's true that it is challenging at the moment, because we see some cases where you're getting the medication, you got this new modality, and you have to answer that it may be on the critical path, the development of the device. And that's something that no one wants to hear in a pharma company. So managing to anticipate this as a team working on device developments is quite difficult because of the variety of modalities. So you have to decide where you put your different projects. And for us, it's clear that moving from hospital to home is the key one. But still, you can see the diversity of solution in this field compared to the reduced diversity in autoinjectors. That's, I mean, no offense to them, but most of them much more or less look like the other one. So I think there's still a lot of work in this direction.
Yeah, the whole platform concept for me brings up a lot of thoughts. I worked for Ford Motor Company. We talked about automotive, or you guys talked about automotive in the last session as well. And when I was there, you know, everything was about platform, right? It was the SUVs and the pickups were all going to be off the same platform, and all the large cars off the same platform. And then now that's changed again, because it became a bit too mundane of a set of offerings. I wonder if we're going to see a similar phenomenon here within pharma and within drug delivery systems. But an interesting question that's relevant, or comment, came in. So Hugo says the need for innovation is simple. It's the need to create tangible value. Good comment. I agree with it. How do we define tangible value as we're tackling the question of therapies and the delivery of therapies moving to the home? What is needed to create momentum and demand within pharma to show, for instance, that if you take 2 vials and try and reconstitute them at home versus I'll bring up the example, a dual chamber syringe, the user, it's just easier. What do you guys think is the level of proof that's needed to make that value statement? I'll open that up to anyone.
Yeah, so I mean, I can take a stab at that, John. Yeah, you know, it's interesting in the device world, trying to put an NPV on your program before you start is like step one. You have to kind of map that out, and in most cases, you have to show that there is an existing code that you can use to charge against. And if not, what's the work to get that code to charge against? And if you think you'll never be able to charge for that, that's probably not a viable business in the device world. In the pharma world, it's more complicated. That same mindset is there. Is there a code you can use for a device, or if not, you know, what do you do? But you can get value from other areas, such as driving market share compared to a different presentation. So, you know, maybe you're offering something that's a better user experience. So market share is one that comes to mind for driving value. And you know, the part that's also tougher for pharma companies to understand is that just the user preference to take things home. You know, how do you put a dollar amount on that? Because there are that are out there. So it's a paradigm shift. So it's kind of like Innovators Dilemma. How do you put a dollar amount on a market that doesn't exist yet? So, I mean, just some kind of random thoughts related to your question. I don't think I gave you a concrete answer, though.
That's okay. There's very rarely a concrete answer, but I appreciate the comment. A lot of us come from, let's call it the more traditional device world, right? Where we're selling cardiovascular stents, for instance, and your business model is exactly right. It's different in pharma for sure. You know, I'll go on to this topic one more time at home and direct this to Sherri. You said something to me once before that really resonated, is that the simpler you make something on the outside, the more complex it becomes on the inside. So maybe you could comment on what does that create in terms of hurdles to implementation as you liaise with your internal teams and your asset managers to try and get projects moving forward?
Yeah, maybe I can try to answer that and touch back on what you had said a couple of minutes ago about where the value is. Like, a lot of times when I'm thinking about the complexity of a device that we might bring forward, I have to realize that the way the rest of the organization is going to look at it is they have a drug that, let's say, is a wonderful drug, right? A $1 billion a year drug. Every month I make that drug late because I have another device design cycle I've got to loop around with. You know, actually I'm challenged to do the math quick, but what does that come out to? $80 to $90 million a month that I am losing in revenue if I am late. And so your question about platforms and value, once a technology is ready to have a molecule integrated with it, I can't be late. I have to have an incredibly high probability of technical success from the point that it's connected to a molecule. And to Mark's point, when I'm billing to that molecule, God, I better not slow that molecule down. But when we have to bring really complex modalities to market, I have to do all that new technology innovation before the molecule needs it. And if I'm going to create that really positive experience, and reconstitution is a great example because, damn, those are hard for patients. If I have to try to make that super innovative for people to be able to do at home, that means the device itself is going to be incredibly complex. And I'm going to have to demonstrate to our organization, for example, John, in partnering with a company like yours, that device is going to be highly reliable and robust as designed when the molecule adopts it. And it's likely going to be fairly complicated if what it's doing on the outside is creating something very intuitive for patients, right? And that complexity on the inside can't just be like an N of 10 in design verification testing where I've shown it's reliable. I need to show it's manufacturable, that it's going to be functionally reliable in volume. And that's not always so easy to do and create that visibility, I suppose, internal in our pharma organizations. But our partnership together needs to be able to create that visibility to have confidence within pharma. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Other comments on the topic from anyone?
I mean, I wanted to chime in on that. I mean, and it's tied into something Quentin said before. When you're sitting there on our side of the table looking at platforms to bring in, usually it's in collaboration with the people in the asset team, and a lot of the mentality is thinking, you know, I want something that's proven, reliable. That's number one. And so speed to clinic is important. Speed to commercial is important. And like Sherri said, you do not want to be on the critical path. So it's interesting, the platforms, why do they all look the same or converging to the same for auto injectors? There's a reason for that, because the need for differentiation is actually secondary to having something that's reliable, and that's something that you have high probability that it'll work. You can make it, like Sherri said, and then it'll get approved as in your combination product. So deviations from the platform are actually probably not desired for those known technologies. And then so you see companies playing games with, well, it's the base platform is the same, but you can change some of the outside coverings and things like that, and that's where the differentiation comes in. So if you just take that one step further and say a company like yours, John, you know, you're trying to anticipate that the next need, you know, the next platform that big pharma wants to adopt. What I've seen when people come to us, they often say they're offering up things like, well, we'll give you, you know, exclusivity if you help us fund, or things like that. Honestly, the best thing you can do, at least for my organization, is de-risk all those things Sherri was talking about. Do those reps of verification testing on your platform. Do the design for manufacturability. Actually invest in some of the tooling to de-risk a commercial production line. And it's a trick though, because a lot of the people doing the work on the small company side don't have the revenue to do that work. So they're looking for big pharma, big dollars, big pockets to help them. So they're coming in and saying, hey, help us do that. And the other side of the table are saying, no, you know, we want to wait till you're further along. So you almost have this gap between where the proof of concept to a robust platform that we're ready to put our asset in.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Quentin, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to continue on the discussion on value, because here we clearly discussed the point of value in terms of enabling the launch of the medication. But what we demonstrated also on our side is the value of the device once the medication is on the market can be also tremendous. And of course, it depends on the therapeutic area, because it depends whether patients at the moment of the prescription will see any value, whether doctors will see any value. It may come afterwards also. We've got two examples, one on growth hormone deficiency, where this is a field where there is limited differentiation on the medication itself. So really patients are presented with different options of treatment together with devices. So really the appearance, the fact that the simplicity, they will directly decide based on devices. That's a unique case, of course, but this is where it's going to drive market share. And the other aspect, rather the other extreme, is more in the field of chronic disease, on neurology, immunology, in particular in multiple sclerosis. Here it's a situation where the doctor would prescribe a treatment without probably even knowing what is the device that is going to be used by patients. But the moment that is key is that we know this is a condition where people living with this condition may switch on a regular basis between treatments. So the question is it satisfying? Is it good to use this device? Are we limiting the number of adverse events or potential drops or difficulties or challenges for something that they may have to do on a regular basis? And it may limit the switch. I think we have to be honest about this, in a sense that it's bringing value by providing satisfaction to people using these treatments. And that's why I really believe that device can bring value, not just for being there on time in terms of a drug launch, but also through the life cycle. But it depends a lot on the therapeutic area. Now to the question or the point that Merck was raising about how do we help small company innovate? This is also something that is, let's be honest, that is tricky. Pharma company would be really happy to just sit there, relax, and wait for the fantastic innovation to be ready. And we need to bridge the gap. And at least my advice, or what we're trying to do on our side, is do something that probably small company can't do, which is comparing solution together with patients in a given condition and running researches that are comparing different options, and then bring back some of this information to the companies that are kind enough to work with us on these particular devices, so that we feed them, we provide insights to this company on what we believe the patients we're providing a treatment to may like or not like, or how it fits within the overall flow. I'm not saying that's all we could do, but I think that's something that can be helpful in bridging this gap. Of course, money will help. I agree.
Well, this is a rich topic. Forgive the pun, and you can see the comments sort of exploding around this chicken and egg phenomenon that we're all referring to, and Quentin, you've jumped into discussing what are ways to break this cycle, right? We would call it this paralyzing loop where, you know, an asset manager says, give me something I can differentiate my drug product with. And then you guys with your vast experience say, we can do that, but it's going to cost X number of dollars and take X number of months. And of course it's news, so there's risk involved. And, you know, little company, device company XYZ, well, they've got money today, and what's going to happen down the road? Will they get funded? So there are all these layers of risk that lead us to this loop where we want technology, we want to differentiate, but then we say, just get me to market as fast as possible. So let's explore deeper. Quentin, you brought up some ideas. Let's explore deeper how to break that chicken and the egg, or that paralyzing loop scenario. You're right. Your expertise, your ability to generate comparative data, that for us has been critical as we've advanced our technology, working with our customers to do comparative studies where we learn where the warts are and cover them early on.
So I'll just say one thing really quick and pass it to the others. You know, in big pharma, I think there's some other ideas that maybe can be gleaned from the device world. I worked in J&J for 10 years, and there was this understanding that maybe the teams doing the development don't have the right mindset to do the early investment. So you have basically internal venture companies within that are willing to take on more risk, and they have some earmarked dollars to fund the early development in anticipation of the needs of the business. And pharma companies do it on the molecule side. So maybe the challenge there is to build up that infrastructure of VC type networks within pharma companies to enable some of these early development, like Quentin said, help them do the human factor studies and the preclinical work that they can't afford, in exchange for equity, or in exchange for exclusivity early, because by the time the asset teams are talking about it, it's too late. Yes, asset teams have the dollars, but the timing will never work. So you need to have an earlier structure to have those discussions.
Totally agree. Other comments before we go deeper?
I might add to that, Mark. There's still a gap that I struggle with sometimes between the early technology proof of concept and that early innovation and getting it to molecule ready, because that amount of time can be, depending on the technology, many years to many months, to be shorter. And sometimes that's the place where we get a bit log jammed, is that it can be a long road from that proof of concept to clinical ready, and the organization gets nervous putting the molecule at risk of delay for that. And so what I've been trying to think about more is, what are really the right key experiments that you can do early to provide the organization confidence it will be molecule ready on time? Once you've done that proof of concept work, if you've got like a cardiovascular outcome trial that you want to put that in, and it's going to be a big trial, you've got to create some confidence you're going to get there on time. So how do I de-risk? What's the right body of work that early?
Sherri, I think it's really interesting. I mean, we're doing the same. We do things we call them, highly accelerated stress testing, which is basically a subset of design verification, and say, where was this design going to fall down, and let's do a preliminary test of those. If we pass that, then maybe we'll go further. So I think that's a great mindset, Sherri. And
maybe a question to you, Ma. How do you do this exactly when you've got really innovative devices? I mean, I've got the same. Of course, I mean, you can learn from experience, but there is a bias to it because you're applying your experience on devices that you know to completely novel devices. So we've been trying also doing this, and we're always struggling to define really what what we failed, basically. It's a challenge to do this. So
yeah, it sure is. And honestly, the answer is, I mean, you have to have forward-thinking leadership. Luckily, our device development group has a very forward-thinking leader and has managed to convince the leadership to have faith. But it's hard, because patience sometimes runs thin, and sometimes dollars are needed in other places. But it's a constant battle to carve out some time and money to do the upfront work in anticipation of future needs.
But John, maybe that's where, kind of coming back to what you said before in terms of the partnership between pharma and the device companies, if the device companies can come in and create a transparency about where the risks are and how they've reduced those risks, then that can help people on the pharma side build that confidence, both within their own device group and then communicate that to the stakeholders we have. That honesty and that transparency of where the risks are to being on time, I think is and the demonstrated evidence, right? Whether it's the modeling, the tolerance analysis, the benchtop testing, that's where that partnership, I think, can get really good. And where sometimes maybe it's missing.
Yeah, and Quentin, I think you might have been going down the technical road where new technologies, where the roadmap for DV and approval is less clear. Those are even harder to do. But somebody has to take the guess of what needs to be proven, and then you have the models of design controls and essential performance requirements and things like that. You have to define the requirements because the guidances aren't there from the regulatory agencies there yet. So then you have to believe in design controls.
I think the point from Sherri is also extremely relevant, is that sharing as a pharma company the kind of issues that you foresee and where things may have failed in the past, and transparently listing all of them to companies could help, because how could they know? I mean, it's difficult to guess some of these elements. So I think that's a key aspect of the partnership.
Yeah, I think you guys have struck on a nerve here, or at least some, maybe better stated, some very helpful comments. There's just a couple of minutes left. From our perspective, very quickly, it has totally been about establishing trust, delivering upon milestones, and taking small bites out of the cookie until it has gotten far enough in the maturity of the technology that some strategic partners were willing to get involved and help invest to a point where we could do all the de-risking that you're looking to do. So I think it's wise advice. Last minute or two, I would invite you guys, open forum. Are there any new technologies that are catching your eye? Obviously, I don't want to put anyone in a spot around confidentialities or whatnot, but if there's anything that's catching your eye, or if you have other parting thoughts, let's just go around the loop one more time. Maybe Quentin, would you start, please?
Me, I'm more focused on wearable devices. So I'm curious to see how far we can really go with this. I mean, we've seen a couple of examples already, but if you look at when it started, I think there is still way to go in terms of solutions that are widely available and used for a variety of cases. So I think we'll see many evolution in this field. And I'm really curious to see how it evolves.
Great. Sherri, maybe a quick comment?
Yeah, I'm kind of energized these days by the combination of formulation innovation and device innovation, each and how they can come together to do something kind of clever. And a lot of the technologies that were described even through these last days in terms of maybe delivering very high concentrations or enabling very high concentrations of biologics so that the device doesn't have to work as hard to do with, to make up for some of the formulation differences, that together that might be able to make a better product than having the device do all the work or the formulation do all the work. So I'm kind of excited about that for large volume or large dose delivery.
Thanks, Sherri. Mark, 10 seconds, because Valerie's.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you an answer you're not going to like. We have some innovation programs we're working on that are still kind of under the radar that are exciting me the most out of everything. But there's a lot of great work all around the industry.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing those. Quentin, take it away. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your insights.